what really, excites me about this is the fact that at this point in time, people know that you need a story. There's like a narrative and there's a pitch deck that you're supposed to follow. But back in the day, like you mentioned, all of these were new things. Nobody knew the formula to construct something as a story. And to us, story literally meant just talking about the things we do, right? Like I just, come to you and say, hey, Andy, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But we never knew what has to go into the actual pitch because nobody knew what a pitch was at that point in time. So I think let's dig deeper onto some of these aspects because it's really fascinating to know what transformation a simple pitch or a story has taken over these many years. So one of the other things that I want to touch a little upon is going from not knowing how to present the story to actually talking to different people about building their own stories, like working with so many founders. What do you think these founders get wrong about storytelling or about forming the narratives to date? Like fundamentally they get it flawed, but they think it's right. Have you
Mm.
noticed some trends about this?
Well, so this word story, we kind of throw it around like, what do we really mean by this? And, there's a lot of people have different definitions of it.
Mm.
Uh, I think as you were saying, kind of like, we're really talking about a pitch, a pitch and that's relatively short, right? That, and then the question is also, I think you said, is like, what's the structure of that thing? Um, and there's this kind of traditional structure. Uh, so I also went to business school, and this is the structure I learned in business school, which is basically uh, the buyer has a problem. Uh,
Mhm.
we, our company, whatever, have the solution, and let me tell you why it's better than the other solutions. This structure, which really goes back to the basically like the early positioning books, like Crossing the Chasm, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I call this structure the arrogant doctor because basically it's like you have a pain, I have the cure, and let me tell you why it's better than the other cures. And I'm not saying it's your cure is not better than the other cures, maybe it is, but
Mhm.
that's the structure of it. And so what does that structure do? I mean, first of all, it sounds like it's kind of customer directed because, oh, we're talking about their problem. But really, we're spending a lot of the time talking about, well, here's our solution and why it's so great. We're
Yeah.
really, the other thing about it is, especially when you're selling to like a B2B situation, which is all the teams I work with are in that situation. These are big organizations, a lot of people who have lots of problems.
Mhm.
And so that traditional structure doesn't really create any sense of, well, why this problem versus other problem? What it's really, you were talking about urgency, but the typical approach to that is like, oh, well, it's really urgent. So I started to see I think the first one was really Mark Benioff with Salesforce. And he was pitching like right around the time I was doing my startup, and it was really fascinating to me. This he pitched in this very different way. It was a different structure, and really the structure that I came to embrace, and what I call the strategic narrative. I'm old enough to remember this pitch when it was happening, but Benioff, he came out and he said, "Software is over, or it's the end of software." And now we're in this new era called the cloud.
Right.
And of course, he meant software in the sense of software that you're going to own, and you buy it and you maintain it and run it on your own computers and all that. And that's very different because he's not talking about a problem. He's talking about really a shift in the world from what I
Yeah.
call old game to new game. And uh, it was amazing how this structure played. Like, he's not talking. This is very centered on the buyer because his whole story is about, hey, here's what's happening in your world. Of course, he's going to get to, well, we're going to help you, play that new game and win it. But this old game, new game, in his case, end of software, dawn of the cloud. This structure was, I thought, what was really interesting to me, and then I started seeing it, especially starting around 2015 I started seeing it more and more, especially as the disciples of Benioff started creating their own companies.
Really.
You
Yeah.
referred to that article about the greatest sales deck I've ever seen. That's about Zuora and their story about the subscription economy. We now live in a subscription economy, which it used to be people bought things. Now people want to subscribe to things or get the services, without owning. And the CEO of that company, Tien Tzuo, he was, I think, point number 11 at Salesforce. So
True.
it's no accident that this line starts coming from him.